Hello Year 9, welcome back to Food Technology. It's Mrs. Tung here and we are going to continue with our vegetarian healthy eating V's for vegetables theme. So this lesson is all about making pizza. So this is a list of the ingredients you're going to need and a list of what's on the tray in front of me. You're going to need some of your ragu sauce. I think that was week 8. We made a sort of hidden vegetable ragu sauce. So you're going to need about a cupful of that, about half a pint. You're going to need 200 grams of self-raising flour, a tablespoon of oil, half a teaspoon of salt, 100 ml of water and a cup of grated cheese. Now the ingredients list is on the PowerPoint that goes with this recipe. I've also got some extra garnish bits. I've got some sliced tomatoes and spring onions just to make my pizza look a bit more attractive. I've also included some of my favourite Mediterranean herbs like oregano and basil. Remember, we've also got some of those flavourings packed in our ragu sauce. So this is some of the ragu sauce that went into the freezer from week 8. It's been defrosted and we're going to use that as part of our topping, and it's going to make our pizza super healthy. So pizza is a bit of a cheat. It is a little bit of a sort of treat. But if you try and include lots of healthy things, you are going some way to making it a bit healthier. So we're going to start off with making our dough. This is a cheats pizza because normally pizza you use plain flour, strong flour, and you use yeast. But we're going to use self-raising flour just to save on time. We've done our pita breads with yeast already. If you want to use the pita bread recipe to make the dough, that's fine, but you're going to need to leave it to rest after you've made it. So you're going to need to leave it to prove and then reshape it into your pizza base before you can use it. Otherwise your pizza is going to be very, very flat and hard. So I've got my 200 grams of self-raising flour, and into that I'm going to put half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add the oil directly into the dough mixture, a bit like the year 7 tortilla recipe, those of you who had me in year 7. And I'm going to add 100 ml of water. Okay, and we're going to try and mix this up together till it forms a dough. I haven't added all of my water in because I don't want this to be too wet. Sometimes you might need to add a tiny bit less or a tiny little bit more. Okay, just remember it's always better to add a little bit less because you can always add it, but it's very difficult to take the water out of the flour. If you were making this into a super healthy pizza, you could swap plain flour, not plain flour, but white flour. I've just got plain white self-raising flour. You could change it into wholemeal flour and use some raising agents like baking powder to give the rise. Okay. Remember from our Eat Well guide, the more fibre you include, not only is fibre really good for your digestion, it's also a really good source of vitamin B. So you're getting extra nutrients in it as well. So the dough should start to come together. If you wanted to add extra flavourings to your dough, so it's not just plain dough, you could add extra spices, flavourings to there. Remember, you've got loads of flavours in your dough, in your pizza topping already with the ragu sauce. So don't go too crazy. Right, so I've got my dough, it started to come together. Hopefully you've washed your hands before you started, you've taken off any jewellery or watches, things that aren't necessary. I should have reminded you about that. Right, so I'm going to use some of my flour that I've got here. You must make sure that you clean your surface as well. So I'm going to lightly sprinkle some flour on here. I've got a rolling pin as well, and I'm going to roll this out. You need to make sure you've got something to put your pizza onto. So you need to get a baking tray, something like that to put your pizza onto afterwards. So I've floured it, it's not going to stick too much, that's why we flour the surface. And I'm going to roll it out. So this should make one large medium-sized pizza. Might need a little bit more flour on there to stop it sticking on top. Now I'm rushing this, so hopefully your pizza will not be as rushed as mine. But for the point of a demonstration, it will give you the idea. Okay, so you need to roll it out. So it's roughly pizza shaped. Mine's looking a little bit square, but that's okay. Right. I have got a lightly greased baking tray over here. So this is what I'm going to put my pizza onto. I'm going to show you how I pick up the dough to stop it pulling or tearing or ripping and getting a hole in there. I actually just roll it onto the rolling pin. So that gives it some sort of support. I'm going to need to clean my work surface before I can continue. So let's move that out of the way. Okay. So that's a bit better now. Right, so I have my rustic looking pizza here. So now we can start to add our toppings. You need to roll this out till it's about, I don't know, not see-through thin, but not so thick that it's going to take forever to cook and it will stay raw with all your toppings on. So you need it about 1/4 centimetre thick, really quite thin. Not as thin as a tortilla, but you know, not thicker than 1/2 centimetre. I've got my ragu sauce here. Sometimes when you've frozen it, if you've frozen it like I did, I found there was a lot of extra water in there, so drain off the extra water, it tends to separate, but it's still fine. Don't put too much of your ragu sauce on. You can see mine's still quite watery. It depends how much you've reduced your sauce by, so if it's really lovely and thick, you can have a thicker layer of ragu on there. So remember, this is super healthy because we've got all those hidden vegetables in there. We've got peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms, all our spices and herbs as well. And the key to making a healthy pizza is having restraint. So restraining the unhealthy stuff. So you'll see what I mean by that in a moment or two. Now the ragu sauce is what's going to be really healthy. We're going to be making a plain sort of margherita pizza. So I've got some cheese on here. If you're trying to make it healthy, restrain the amount of cheese. Use cheese, but just don't have so much of it. You could swap to like a low-fat cheese as well. So I'm going to sprinkle some of that on. Okay, I'm talking about restraint and I'm actually loading mine with loads of cheese. I love cheese, so. But think about who you would be making this for as well. If you were making this for somebody who's maybe gluten intolerant, what sort of flour would you be using for the base? You wouldn't be using wheat flour. You might have to swap it up for something different. If you were, you know, any sort of the vegetables, you wouldn't use things like celery if somebody had a celery allergy, anything like that. At this point, you could add extra herbs, extra garnishes like the sliced tomato or spring onions. Be wary about adding too much moisture. Too much moisture is probably going to make your pizza very soggy as well. This needs to go in the oven for about 10-15 minutes till the dough base is actually cooked through. It starts to go brown, golden brown. It needs to go in at about 180 degrees till the cheese is all golden, bubbly and melty. Okay. Make sure you've got somebody to help you, especially with the oven part. If you haven't and you're stuck to cook and you haven't got somebody to help you or supervise you, or you can't get ingredients, the alternative task is to write out the recipe. So you've got your ingredients and you've got your list of method, so what you actually do to those ingredients to turn it into a yummy pizza. And then for a challenge or a higher grade, you would write down how you change this recipe to make it super healthy for somebody who is on a low-calorie diet, reducing the amount of fat and calories in the food, reducing the amount of salt, how you could change it for somebody who was gluten intolerant. So you're including needs of other people other than yourself, okay? So that's the alternative task. All the information that you need is on the PowerPoint next to the video. So have a go, Year 9, and good luck. I really look forward to seeing your practicals when you've had a go at doing them at home, and I look forward to seeing your suggestions for your recipes as well. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing what you upload.